I'll use Zoom. Again, is it Troy?
Good evening, everyone. It is Wednesday, June 4th at 5:30, and this is the Lacey Park Culture and Recreation Board meeting. I'd like to call the meeting to order. Big gavel, and do a little roll call. We'll start with our commissioner online.
Hi, I'm Bill, Commissioner.
Hello, Bill. And then I'm going to start over.
Sure. Hi, Jen Burbidge, Director of Parks, Culture and Recreation for the city.
Jenny Wilson, I'm a parks planner for the city.
Jamie Oakland, Parks Maintenance Supervisor.
I'm Nita Sal, guest from Gateway Rotary. Michelle Gibson, Park Commissioner.
Annette Roth, Park Commissioner.
Jerry Larson, Park Commissioner.
Aaron Wheeler, Commissioner Board Chair. Oh, yeah.
And Erica, I'm a guest.
We also have Carter Gibson, Executive Assistant. We have Troy Wu, our Finance Director. We have Brett Booger, who's our Public Works Capital Projects Engineer. Also want to acknowledge Scott Ager is here. He's our Public Works Director. We have Bogdan from also Public Works Capital Projects team. Also have Trent here with SCJ Alliance, and he'll get introduced when that topic comes up.
And Lori Davies, so not to call you out sitting down, but
Thanks, call me out for being late. Come on.
I didn't say you're late. Say you're late. I just you just sat down. That's all I'm saying. Wonderful. Okay. Well, thank you all for being here, and then we will now move on to the land acknowledgement. And then Rob said she would be so gracious as to read it for us.
Thank you, Aaron. We, the city of Lacey, are on the ancestral land of the tribal people of the Treaty of Medicine Creek, including the Nisqually Indian Tribe and Squaxin Island Tribe. We acknowledge and remember those tribal people not recognized today who were absorbed or relocated into other tribes for survival. We recognize the ancestors and their descendants who are still here. We recognize and respect the tribal people of the Treaty of Medicine Creek as the traditional stewards of this land since time immemorial, and their role today in taking care of these lands in perpetuity. We recognize and have the responsibility to call attention to the histories of dispossession, forced removal, and abridged treaty rights that allowed our nation, state, and city to develop as they have today. We recommend that community members read the Medicine Creek Treaty of 1854.
Thank you. And moving on to approvals of agendas and minutes. So 4A, which is the approval of today's agenda. Can I get an action to a motion to approve the agenda as written?
So move.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, it's been first and seconded. Are there any additional discussions about the agenda? All right, hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? All right, hearing none, we approve the agenda as written. And then moving on to 4B, which is the approval of the May 7th, 2025 meeting minutes. Can I get an action to approve that?
So move.
So moved. Second?
Second.
We have it seconded. Any additional conversation about the May 7th minutes? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, hearing none, it is approved. Great, and that moves on to number 5, which is public comment. There has been, I've been informed there's been no written public comment and no public comment waiting here, so that's great. So that moves on to number 6, which is our business items. And we will start with Erica Scott Small, our recreation coordinator.
Great, and I'm actually gonna go ahead and kick it off here. So yeah, just want to welcome and introduce Erica Scott Small. She's the latest addition to our team in the Parks, Culture, and Recreation Department. She's been hired on as recreation coordinator, helping out in the special events, sponsorship, and marketing area of our department. And we're just really excited to have her on board. She shared with us that she's a native of Panama, an Army veteran, and a military spouse. She has a Bachelor of Science in Recreation Management from Arizona State University. With a strong background in event planning and community involvement, perfect for her role, as explained earlier, in the events world. But we just super appreciate her jumping in, and her first day on the job was the holiday event, or second day,
No, first.
first day, first official day on the job was the holiday event at Hunter Barbara. So she really got, really jumped in, really jumped in. But she has been just a wonderful addition with her experience and her, different perspective coming in to our department, and she's just really great to work with. I'm gonna let her share a little bit more about her experience.
Right, thank you for those kind words, Jen, and nice to meet all of you. I, as Jen mentioned, graduated from Arizona State University with a Bachelor in Recreation. I started my career on JBLM before it became JBLM, and I worked for MWR for about 10 years. So I've assisted helping with Freedom Fest events and doing the air shows and the 4th of July events. We later moved to Hattiesburg, Mississippi, where I worked for the Convention Commission. And I got to plan events at the Convention Center, the Sanger Theater, and then also the Zoo, which was very exciting. We came back to Washington, and I then took a virtual position working for Meta as a contractor, working in their leadership and development department. My last position was at the Space Needle as a planning manager, which I enjoyed very much, but the traffic was atrocious. So thanks to this job, I now have my life back and I can get home in about 15 minutes or less. I'm very happy to be here, excited to bring my skills and knowledge to Lacey and help and make our programs grow. We have amazing programs. The feedback that we get from folks that are attending the programs are always very positive. So I'm really excited that I landed here and I'm looking forward to continue to work here. And thank you very much.
She survived Lacey Spring Fun Fair. She has, she'll have her first 3rd of July here coming up
Yeah,
pretty soon, so.
thank you for your time.
Welcome. Yeah.
Yes.
I met you at the spring fair. That was fun.
Good to see you.
Thank you again, and yeah, and feel free to take off. We know schedules are busy.
Thank you.
So we'll
For your 15-minute commute.
Hi, Erica.
That's wonderful. So moving on to 6B, which is the Bush Park Playground fundraising update.
Yeah, and if, I'm just gonna interrupt really quickly and give just a little introduction about, we have Nita Sell here. She's the president-elect of Gateway Rotary. And a little bit of a background about.
Read your lips when I'm
Oh. Sorry, so just a little bit of a background about this partnership that we have with Gateway Rotary. They've partnered with us on the William Bush Playground Replacement Project. So they're putting in a ton of effort on this project, and doing quite a bit of fundraising in terms of a golf tournament. And so they've committed to contribute $110,000 towards this project's replacement. So it'll replace the structure for ages 5 to 12-year-olds. There's 2 playground structures out there. And this is just a really huge contribution, certainly one of the highest contributions we've ever partnered with an organization for a project. So we're really grateful. And then the Bush Park is about 29 years old. It's our oldest playground structure, so it's in vital need of replacement. And just the project status, we're working with, our goal this year is to work with our capital projects team. So Bogdan's here. I know he's heading this one up, and we're hoping to get some design concepts, and then Gateway Rotary is going to work with us to get community input and get feedback and help make a selection from the community. So really excited. Nita's here to give us.
I can leave now.
Yeah. Oh, I'm so sorry. Is it too much? Too much? Sorry. So she's going to give us an update on their fundraising efforts and.
Jenny gave me 5 minutes, so I'm starting my timer. I'm Nita Sell, president-elect of Gateway Rotary and chair of the, I have to say it correctly, Birdies, Balls and Bunkers. Do you remember the BBB, the Brats, Brews and Bands? That was our big fundraiser, and then COVID happened and we lost members, so we it now became the Bunkers, Balls and Birdies. So we have 3 years to raise $110,000 to replace the playground equipment at Bush Park. And we're gonna add $15,000 on top of that and put a big sign saying Gateway Rotary. So yay. This is our second year to raise money for the golf course. It is August 6th at Capital City. This year is a little bit mo better because we're giving everybody breakfast. Last year was my first year. I don't golf, so I just attended and helped out. And I was starving. By about 10 o'clock, I was ready to faint. So we're providing everyone with breakfast and lunch. It's $125 per golfer, $500 for a team, and there's all kinds of goodie bags and all kinds of stuff. If we are successful, we are very close to meeting our goal, and we're 2 months away from the event. If we get our goal of $30,000 this year, and we're this close, we'll have met our goal for the 2026 recreation parks, the playground equipment. So don't tell anybody, shh, because we're gonna do it again next year. So don't tell them we've
you
already
just-
met our goal.
You
So.
just told, everybody who's watching at home.
Oh, hi, guys. We've been very successful. Well, actually, what we plan to do when we meet our goal, we'll stick that in the foundation bank account and save it for 2026. Then next year's golf tournament will be to raise more funds, put it in the Gateway Foundation and build up the corpus. So when people come to us and say, you know, we have this really cool project, we need your help, we'll have the money in our foundation to help. So we're not gonna spend it, we're gonna put it in our foundation.
Or a zip line.
Pardon me? That would be cool. So, I understand Lacey has 2 golf teams. Thank you very much. But I have applications. Does anybody golf? Any more golf? Oh, here we go. We have room for 36 teams and we have 26 right now. So we're quickly filling up. So, any questions? We're very excited about it. My husband was in rehab facility down in Lacey and I was driving to see him. He had a little thing. He's fine. But I was driving by and went, oh, there's Bush Park. There's the playground equipment that we're replacing. It was very exciting to see it. So thank you. We love our support with our partnership with you guys. And we look forward to helping you in 2026, bringing the equipment. Thank you very much. Thank you. 2 minutes left. I did good. Okay.
Awesome, wonderful. That moves us on to 6C, which is the Regional Athletic Complex Phase 3 funding and concepts by our Director, Jen Burbidge.
I was just looking at these guys, perfect.
Oh, and Troy Wu
Yeah. And
and Brett from SCJ.
Yep.
no. Oh, Brett's going down there. Okay, and Trent also. You want to come up here? Just give us a moment to get situated here. We also have folks joining us online. All right, oh, awesome. Oh, Jenny, looks like you could stay. Nope, okay.
Rotating power seat.
Okay, so we have some folks here from SCJ Alliance and also from ALSC Architects, but we actually have 2 presentations tonight, so we're gonna start with the first one and do a better introduction, and also Trent here as well. That'll come in the next presentation. I'm gonna share my screen. Try that again. How about now? You good about it? Okay, great. Awesome. Okay, yeah, so for this first segment, we have Troy Wu here, who's our finance director. And then I had mentioned Brett Hugard, our public works capital projects engineer. And the first presentation is going to be focused on the public facilities district funding. And the second will focus on the concept plans for the RAC Phase 3. But the intent for tonight is to help the Parks Board understand the PFD extension and the RAC Phase 3 options. This is meant to be informative for you. We of course value your feedback and want to answer any questions you might have before we head into next Tuesday's council work session. I'm gonna go ahead and get us started here with kind of a reminder of where we've been in the last year. You'll probably recall last April, staff had a recommendation at that time to the council to pursue focusing the design for the RAC Phase 3, the undeveloped property. So you'll see Marvin Road there dissecting north-south. This is the current RAC property, and then we have the 26-acre extension, and that is currently undeveloped right now. So you'll probably recall that we had recommended focusing the newer portion on fast pitch baseball and softball on that west side of Marvin there, and then pursuing conversion of the current RAC soccer field number 2. Right over here, you can see that. Conversion from a grass field to synthetic turf, and then the addition of lights so that that field could be used, obviously after dark, and then the addition of bleachers in order to fill current needs. So that was the recommendation. At the time, council was supportive of the staff direction, and also wanted us to look at a potential soccer concept as well on this undeveloped property. Council also agreed with staff that maintenance and operations would be very important, so that the RAC can be sustainable in the long term. And so we have gone forth, doing the work of developing a master plan. And as you know, with master plans, we take a look at that long-term vision and guiding principles of the project, and then determine the next best steps. Similar to the recent Great Cuyo Park project, I know that a lot of the board members were involved with that project, and knowing that, you know, we spent a lot of time with that master plan and that overall vision, taking the balcony view, and then being able to do Phase 1A of that project. And so what I want to share just right off the bat is that having gone through the process, we're going to be recommending to council here in 2025 that the first feasible step in realizing the long-term vision for the RAC is to focus on the soccer improvements on the east side of Marvin Road and the current RAC. And we'll be able to share more with you, but I want to kick it over to Troy.
Thank you, everyone. Appreciate being here. Oops. Sure. Oh, did I completely go backwards?
Go this one.
I'm good now.
Okay.
Sorry, it's been a while since I've presented in this format. I'm sure we're over here. Really want to kind of give you some background on the Public Facility District sales tax. We fortunately just had our governor sign a House bill on May 17th that actually extended another 15 years. So the history of that, it was first authorized for 25 years, and then in 2017, we saw a 15-year extension, and then we have another 15-year extension. And as I said, the governor just signed into law. So we have a full 55 years of sales tax. One of the conditions on that sales tax is that there is outstanding debt. So there's a provision in state law, if there isn't outstanding debt, we lose our authorization for that sales tax. So a lot of our planning kind of revolves around that. Another provision of that sales tax is that the debt has to be outstanding on the original project. So our project, of course, is the RAC. We also split this sales tax with the City of Olympia, and their project is the hands-on museum. So both of us need to maintain debt throughout that period in order to keep assessing that sales tax.
So you have to stay in debt to the state in order to get the money.
Well, we're not in debt to the state, but we have to have debt outstanding
have
on the
debt.
project, yes.
So it's always important to be in debt to get the money. Is that what you're telling me?
As strange as that sounds, and maybe
Okay,
potentially
wanna make
bad
sure.
financial advice, that's exactly what I'm
Okay.
So I'm going to present a lot of numbers, certainly don't want, to get lost in those numbers, but really my goal here tonight is to kind of talk philosophically about what our plan is, A lot of it is dependent on what the city council decides, and there's 1,000 scenarios in terms of debt and how we apply the money, so try not to get too focused on the numbers. I'll try to stay high level with this, but what I've done here is I've done a 35-year projection of RAC operations. We have red being the expenditures and the blue being revenues, and you could see that they're going in opposite directions, really. I'll be the first one to say that my projection skills really diminish once you get past like 6 months or a year, so we're not going to let it get this bad, for sure. We're going to react before any of this ever happens, but a lot of this is just straight line type of projections in terms of expenditures as well as revenues. So again, this isn't going to happen. We will adjust when we need to. But to kind of talk about the funding of the RAC, most of it is subsidized. Only about 38% is actually generated from RAC activities. So think league fees, field rentals, just recreation programs in general. That only generates about, like I said, 38%. The rest of it comes from subsidies. The majority of the subsidy comes from the city's general fund. Another big portion is this public facility district sales tax. So we can use that sales tax for operations, but we do have to have debt outstanding, so we do have to make debt payments. We also have a portion coming from our lodging tax. So it's a tourism. In fact, I would argue it's certainly the biggest tourism facility we have here in Lacey, but certainly one of the biggest in Thurston County as well. So in terms of breakdown, we use 400,000 per year from public facility district sales tax. It's about 300,000 or so from the general fund, and it's 180 from lodging tax. So that makes up the majority of the revenues for this facility.
Can you convert for me into percentages? So how much is lodging, how much is sales tax, how much is?
Oh, wow, really putting me on the spot.
I'm sorry.
No, it's
It's easier for me to think of than the dollar amount.
Sure. So it's about a $1.5 million budget, so 180, that's what, about 15%?
Yeah.
400,000 is 20% roughly. Jen's, I don't know if she's gonna correct me here or not. 300,000 is one that's about 19% as well, so again, but the subsidized portion is about 63%.
63.
In total. So I don't know if 2020 and 18 adds up to that. But
That's all right. I'm not gonna hold you to your.
okay, thank you. In terms of expenditures, again, it's about a $1.5 million budget. The vast majority of that is actually the operations and maintenance of the facility. So Jamie Oakland and his great staff. So about 1.2 million actually goes to the lights, the water bill, the maintenance of the fields and everything that goes along with that. So, and a much smaller portion is actually what I would call the rec program side of that. So that's about 250,000. Percentage breakout, it's about 83% maintenance and about 17% on the rec side. So I do want to show you what our long-term projections are for the public facility district sales tax. So this is actually a sales tax that is a credit against the state portion. So of our 9.7% Lacey-wide sales tax, 6.5% of that is the state portion. So 0.0333% of the 6.5% is actually what generates this sales tax. So that percentage across the entire Thurston County region generates this total. So this is the long-term, this is the Lacey portion of the sales tax. So by interlocal agreement, there is a sharing of the overall public facility district sales tax. Right now, Lacey receives about 71.8%. The city of Olympia gets the remainder, it's 28.3% or so. So Lacey does receive the majority of that. So again, this is just the Lacey share. So this is just a straight line projection. I think it's 2% per year. It's really going to fluctuate depending on what's happening in the Thurston County region in terms of the economy. Right now, sales taxes are decreasing compared to last year. First time in quite a long time, we've seen a decrease, but the region as a whole is seeing less sales tax being collected. I do want to point out that you see the little red arrow there. There is a provision in the interlocal agreement that when the total public facility district sales tax reaches $40.5 million, so over the life or the cumulative impact of that, once it hits 40.5 million, the percentage allocation changes. So it's going to change from Lacey receiving about 71.8% to 2/3. So it's going to go down to 66%. So my best guess is that's going to happen at the end of 2027. So I think in 2028 is when we're going to see the real impact of that reduction. In that first year, I think that's going to be around $140,000 decrease for Lacey, $140,000 increase for the city of Olympia. We'll kind of see when that actually happens. It's really going to depend on total collections. I will say that we didn't think we'd ever get to 40.5 million because it was based on that 25-year projection, not 55 years. So I don't think we ever intended, I don't think Olympia actually anticipated that either. But once we had that first extension, we knew we were going to hit that threshold at some point. So again, I think that's going to happen right at the end of 2027 if everything stays as it is now in terms of collections. Any questions about that?
There's nothing we can do about that. That's the MOU. That's the way the tax is set up. It's a done deal.
It is, we could try to negotiate the interlocal agreement, but we don't have any plans for that.
Yeah.
This is something we committed to back in 2002. So I mean, this has been a known issue or a known provision, so. I do want to show, the same information, really to give you an idea of where we're coming from in terms of what might be available for debt payments. So this is the same information over that same 35-year period. What you're seeing there at the top in the gray, the 400,000, that is the amount of public facility district sales tax that we're using currently for RAC operations. So this just makes the assumption that for the next 40 years or next 35 years, actually, we're going to continue at that $400,000 subsidy level. So it changes the amount of sales tax that's available for debt. So again, it's over that 35-year period. Really what I want to highlight here is one way of looking at this is the maximum amount that we have for debt service is in year 2028 of 1.4 million available for debt service. So that's 2.8 million in projections for 1.8 in projections for 2028, less than 400,000. The reasoning there is we can't assume 2.8 million at the end of 35 years because sales tax isn't going to grow into that year. We're going to need that debt service payment up front. So our first debt service payment is going to be in 2028. So we need to make sure we have that available sales tax at that point. Once we issue debt, we can't change those payments. We can't change the amount that's owed to bond holders. So that is kind of the thought process, is to really look at what the minimum amount available is throughout this 30-year period. So this is an extremely busy slide, so I apologize for that. This takes it a step further in terms of trying to determine what that minimum amount available for debt service. Again, it's the 35-year period. So when we talked to our council about a year ago, it was maybe a little bit earlier in 2024, but roughly a year ago, we took the approach of assuming that public facility district sales tax would make up any funding gaps going forward for the RAC. There's really an acknowledgement that our general fund doesn't have the capacity for really anything else. So we kind of just made the assumption that as we go over time and as those deficits grow in the RAC, that public facility district sales tax would make up that deficit. One, to keep the general fund whole, and one, obviously, to keep the RAC in operations. So what you're seeing here is same information. The blue is the what I'll call the available public facility district sales tax. You have in gray, the 400,000 per year. What you have here embedded in that is in the red, that is the projected deficit, that first slide I showed you where expenditures are growing at a much faster rate than the revenues. So in red is that deficit. It assumes, again, this model assumes that the public facility district will pay that deficit along with the 400,000, and the remaining will be what is available for potential annual debt service. So I kind of highlighted 4 different years here. Again, in 2028, that's from the previous slide, the minimum amount only assuming 400,000. In 2042, that was our last assumption in terms of the 15-year extension that we last received. So when you take the 400,000, the projected gap, less what we projected for public facility district in 2042, the remainder is $1.2 million. Extend that to 20 years. 20 years is probably a more common term for city debt service. So I just put that as a reference. So again, take the operating deficit that's projected for the RAC, 400,000. Subtract that from the projected sales tax that year, you have about 1,063,000. Fast forward to the end, the last year of the 55 years of the sales tax, the remainder shrinks to about 418,000. So, you know, you think about time value of money and the 30 years. It's kind of interesting to see how that plays out in terms of what interest does over the changing terms. So that's what I have here illustrated in this slide here. So each one of these columns represents the highlighted years from the previous slide. So 30-year debt with the $418,000 available only generates 6.4 million. If you take the 15-year, the previous assumption, 15-year debt, that generates almost 13 million. If you use the 20-year assumption with 1,063,000 available for debt service, that generates 13.2. And this is where we get, so the next two certainly are not recommendations, are not even feasible, but I wanted to show that just for some grounding. So if we were to issue debt using the 1.4 from the very first slide, 30-year debt, that would only generate $21.5 million in bond proceeds. And then the final column is if we didn't have any subsidy at all, no operation dollars at all in Iraq, we took 100% of the sales tax for the public facility district. And not only that, we take year 55, so the highest amount, which is 3.2 million. That's the projection for the highest annual amount. Using 30-year debt, that would generate $49 million. So you're going to see here's some kind of large numbers in terms of what our scenarios are for development of the RAC. Even using every penny, I don't think we could get to the big vision of the RAC.
I don't like super understand all of this. So when you say generate debt payments, is that what you said? When you say generate, I think of like earning, but generating like more debt that's what you're talking about, right?
Well, we're looking for capacity for us to make those required debt payments. So when I say generate, that's really what it means. So it's, you know, think about a mortgage. If you have a house payment, it's that house payment that we want to make sure that we have capacity to make every single year. So.
Okay.
So I do want to illustrate kind of that compounding effect. So normally when we think about compounding interest, we think of it as a good thing. We think about investing and you reinvest your interest earnings and it just compounds over time. Unfortunately, we're on the other side of that. We're the ones that are actually borrowing the money, that we're the ones paying the benefit of the compounding. So I just took the 15-year scenario from the previous slide that generates about $13 million in bond proceeds or what we could use to develop the RAC. If we extend that to 20 years, we get an additional almost 2.6 million more towards a potential capital project. If you extend that to 30 years, you get an additional, on top of the 20-year, you get an additional 3.6. So the difference between 15 and 30 years is only $6 million. You know, one way, the quick look at that is, well, shouldn't we be able to double the amount we could borrow if we go from 15 year to 30? And the answer is no, because of that compounding effect of that. So to really ground that, if we went from 15 years to 20 in this scenario, we added 2.5 million in bond proceeds or what we could apply to a project. But the cost of that extra 5 years and that extra amount is $3.6 million in interest. So we'd actually be paying more interest than what we would gain in principal. Again, comparing going from 20 years to 30 years, we would gain 3.6 million in bond principal again. We'd pay almost 8.8 million more in interest over that time frame. And then if we made the jump from 15 to 30, we get again about 6.2 million in additional interest or additional principal available for a capital project. But we would pay 12.2 million more in interest. So the interest, if you look at the interest in the 15-year model versus the 30-year, it's 3 times the amount of interest being paid over that time period. And that's what erodes that availability. So those are all things we're kind of weighing in terms of how do we best use the taxpayer monies and best kind of make that fit within, you know, what we might do with the RAC.
When did you say there was like a break-even point kind of where when was that? I mean, it was like where, one of the charts before that it was, I think it was an earlier one. I mean, I guess I'm just, yeah, there we go, okay. Okay, so we're talking really soon is when it's gonna start being a problem.
Right, and that 15-year period seems to be kind of that period. You know, that's where it really starts to turn in terms of the amount of interest, because, you know, the longer you have, you know, debt outstanding, the more interest you're gonna pay, and that really seems to be the spot, is that 15-year period. So.
Does that make an assumption like the interest rate staying flat?
It is,
It is.
it assumes a 5% interest rate in all those scenarios. We just issued $16 million worth of bonds on the police station. It was 5%, and that was in February. It's hard to say what interest rates will do between now and 2027 when we actually go out to market, but 5% is certainly conservative. Well, last year I would have said 5% is really conservative, because at that point, market rates were 4%. But a lot changed in a pretty short period of time.
When the rack was built, was there ever a anticipation that it would generate, like it would be self-sustaining, or did we always know that subsidies would be required?
It depends who you ask.
Yeah.
When I got here right after RAC phase 2 opened. In fact, it was the first thing I saw in this community when I was considering applying for the job. It was being highlighted in the job announcement. I said, I'm definitely going to go look at that. And I went out there, I saw the mountain. It was just, I was like, wow, this is unbelievable. When I got here, the intent really was that it would be a self-sustaining facility, but my experience with Parks and Rec facilities is kind of the gold standard is 50%. So it doesn't matter if it's an indoor swimming pool, outdoor swimming pool, rec center, I mean, all those things, it just, my experience has been, you're lucky to recoup 50% from direct fees.
Yeah.
But you know, that's not to criticize by any means.
Yeah,
These are important facilities. And if you think about the RAC, I've told our council this, I go, if you go out to the RAC, the users it's used as a park.
Yeah.
There are
Yeah.
always people there, and it's no different than any other park. It shouldn't just be viewed as a tourism facility
Yeah.
or things like that, because it's very much a park.
Plus, you don't wanna price out the community. I mean,
Right.
you
Yeah,
can't
you-
raise your fees enough to price out the community
So,
to provide that facility.
Does this take into consideration any of the money that could potentially come from the Metropolitan Parks District that could be funneled? No, it's just not, okay.
So, catch up here. When we go to our council next week, we're probably going to be talking in these two areas, just because of that high level of interest and just the dramatic change to go to 30 years. I'll also point out that we adopted council policies that kind of guide us in our financial area. For debt itself, our written policy says we won't issue debt beyond 20 years. It also says that we won't have our debt, the life of our debt be longer than the expected life of the asset. So when you get to 30 years in terms of an asset, that's really kind of stretching it. If you think about field improvements, those are typically 10 to 15 years in terms of life. So we certainly don't want to be paying debt on an asset that we no longer have, or if we've turned it over in terms of maintenance and that sort of thing. So we want to be mindful of that too, but the council does have the authority to change that policy. So I'm not saying we can't issue beyond 30, but that's our guiding document. We don't typically look at debt beyond 20 years. In terms of timeline, this is actually really a 3 or 4 year timeline that we're pretty much in the middle. This is very typical in terms of project development when you talk about coming from a conceptual viewpoint to design, actual construction. This isn't any different than any other project we have here at the city of this magnitude. But what we did is we worked backwards, or actually I worked backwards from when that debt needs to be issued. So the current bonds on RAC Phase 3, they will mature on December 1st, 2027. So we're going to make our final payment. So we have to have outstanding debt in place before November 30th. So it kind of worked backwards from there. It would be my preference to issue debt about mid 2027. And the reason for that is there are spending requirements when you issue debt. So you can't just take that debt, put it in the bank and earn interest. The IRS doesn't like that. We don't actually pay income tax as a local government, but that is one area where we'll absolutely pay tax on income, is earning interest on borrowed money. So the concept there is you want to avoid borrowing money at 2% and then investing it at 5%, you're going to pay income tax on that 3% difference. So, but there are spending requirements. There's exceptions to paying interest on the proceeds. I won't go into all the rules, but you have to have all the money spent at a minimum in a 2-year period. So I like to give our public works folks a head start on spending the money. So I'd like to see the money being spent over at least 2 construction periods if it comes to that. So I would love to see some of that money spent in 2027's construction season. That way we kind of try to give ourselves a head start on avoiding paying any of that income tax, so to speak, on that. So to issue debt in mid 2027, we'll have to start our bond process in the February timeframe of 2027. It takes about 4 months to go to market and issue debt, which all means that we need to make decisions relatively quick to allow us to go through the design process. So we really need a decision as a city hopefully by the 1st of July. So this is on a pretty quick timeline in terms of the decision-making process.
What does the red signify?
The red is to grab your attention, which it did, of course,
Okay.
but that's really our next kind of deadline. So the design you see starting right at July 1st. So that's our goal on making that decision, as an organization, that we could get all the design in motion. So yeah, that just really signifies,
Okay.
Let's get moving. July 1st is right there. So yeah, thanks for the question.
But we don't have to have the design before we issue the debt. We can issue the debt and then do the design, right?
Well, the design should be done by time
Okay.
we need to issue debt. We'll still be in a design phase as we start that process. Hopefully we're far enough along that we kind of see the dollars starting to materialize. The farther along you get along that design line, the more solid the number comes, less contingency, just more confidence in that number. So hopefully that lines up nicely in the February, March timeframe, and we're actually starting to talk to the bond market. We go before Standard & Poor's rating agency. They have a great interest on how we're going to spend the money and how we're going to repay that. So I think everything lines up. It's a pretty tight schedule and we'll definitely have to make sure we keep on track.
Oh, Bill, you have a question?
Yeah, hey, Troy, has the city ever thought about maybe issuing letters of credit and doing financing that way and then bonded after the fact? I mean, if that would qualify for use of the tax, then you're not so rushed.
No, we haven't. Well, to answer your first question, I'm not sure that meets I just don't really have a really good sense whether that would qualify as debt. But one of the issues you have with issuing public debt is you can't really pre-spend it. So it's not a backwards looking mechanism. So typically you have to have those expenditures that happens after you receive the money. So there's some things you can do to stretch that timeline, but that gets a little tricky in terms of not violating how we spend that money.
Okay.
And so
Yeah, we did that in Tacoma just to buy some utility projects that we knew we needed to do. And so we went to banks, got the letter of credit established, did the short-term financing, and then bonded it afterwards and was able to, make it qualify for the way that public financing works with, what am I trying to say? Non-IRS taxable bonds.
yeah, there's a little bit of room in there. It's called a reimbursement resolution for public debt, where we pre-identify the project expenditures. But that's a relatively short window too. I can't remember if it's 12 or 18 months, but that's not indefinite either. But the real big question is your first question, whether a line of credit would actually qualify under the statute as outstanding debt. So we can certainly ask that question. That could be an option.
Your question?
Yeah, and just, again, just before we segue we're excited to hear from the consultant team and all the work they've been doing. But just, again, pointing out that our 2025 recommendation will be a little bit of a shift from what the 2024 recommendation was. Having more information. If there's no more questions on this particular segment, we'll go ahead and switch over. Let's do introductions and then I'll share the presentation. It might be easier to be able to see people on the screen, so.
Okay, I'll start. Hi, Trent. I'm with SCJ Alliance. We're a local landscape architecture, planning, transportation, and engineering firm. We've got offices throughout Washington. We have some in Colorado and one in Montana as well. But our main office is located in Lacey, just off of Martin Way. Been there about 9 years. Part of our team at SCJ is John McNamara, who is the principal landscape architect in Fremont. We've been working with Whitney, who is our civil engineer in Lacey. And then we also were very excited to get ALSC on board to help. They're an outstanding sports facility architecture firm, and they have great experience. And so we've done a lot of notable projects around the area, from transportation. We've done a number of projects at St. Martin's University, and we've done a number of local elementary and middle schools in the North Thurston School District. So we're pretty familiar with the area. This was a very exciting project and we were very happy to win it. We also did the parking lot at the RAC that was completed recently. And so I'm going to turn it over to John to give a little background and introduce himself.
Okay, and John, I'm gonna go ahead and share the screen.
Sure, go for it.
And also, I forgot to thank all the staff from the city that worked along with the consultant team. So I want to thank Brett, who's here, Jenny Wilson, who's also here, for her role on the team. Jamie Oakland was very instrumental, our parks maintenance supervisor, in providing feedback. One of his staff, Julie McFadden, also helped out, and two more from my department, Sue Faylash, our recreation manager, and Sean Finney, who is a recreation supervisor whose office is out at the regional athletic complex. So I want to thank our internal team as well. So I'm sharing, John.
Okay, go for it. I'm John McNamara. I'm a principal landscape architect with SCJ Alliance. I bring almost 30 years of sports field design to the team, and I'm truly excited to be part of this project. I was an active baseball player in high school and in college, and I'm excited to be part of this team, and I look forward to working with you.
I'm Troy Bishop. I'm a principal at ALSC Architects in Spokane, but we do work all over the Pacific Northwest, and we're blessed to get this project from your city because we're just highly inspired by the region. And anytime you can do a sports facility looking at Mount Rainier, you're always excited. So then I want to introduce Drew.
Hi, I'm Andrew Leeper with ALSC Architects, actually at a stadium that we worked on. So my, I guess, office away from the other office. I've been doing sports and rec work for over 15 years, and it's a real passion of mine, and looking forward to bringing this fun project in Lacey to fruition. And then with that, I'll give it back to Trent.
Good.
All right, so the overall scope of the project is, there's the undeveloped area that is west of the actual RAC project. That was, that's where we want to develop new sports facilities. We also were looking at east side improvements at soccer field number 2 to replace that grass turf with synthetic turf, as Jen had mentioned. So we were tasked with completing this master plan for the entire site. The city wanted us to develop several different concepts for the east side, and then look into and kind of dig into what we could do with that existing soccer facility. So the first option that we needed to develop was creating on the east side a college level regulation baseball field.
West side rather, sorry.
Oh, west
West
side,
side.
yep, west side. In the undeveloped area, a collegiate regulation baseball field and 2 softball fields. These would include a lot of amenities that would be concession stand, play areas, bleachers, restrooms, locker rooms, and also looking at the environmental and cultural amenities as well. Option 2 was to develop 3 softball fields, and kind of a scaled back version of some of those. We would include bleachers and restrooms. All of these include lighting, play areas as well, environmental and cultural area review. And then the third option would be a college regulation baseball field, locker rooms, restrooms, concession stand, and then a large multi-purpose field that would have 2 softball fields, but could also be used for soccer. All 3 options included maintenance facilities that would have storage and a maintenance building and parking and room for equipment. On the east side, the improvements, As Jen mentioned, converting that one soccer field that is currently grass to a natural synthetic turf, adding additional lights to extend the use of that area. And then we also dug in and studied additional phases and other amenities that could be included in part of that, just to make those just kind of standalone soccer fields more of an amenity and more of just an actual soccer facility. We also looked into providing pedestrian connections between the west side and the east side. A few of those included grade and on-grade or separated grade crossings. And as we get further in the design, we might look into those a bit more. But that was something that would be important to just kind of bridge those two facilities together and make it feel more cohesive in one. So I'm going to turn it over to John, and I'm going to let him kind of run through our concepts that we came up for the west side.
I have a question.
Yes.
Will there be a parking lot on the west side?
Yes, it included parking facilities as well. Yeah. Actually, before I kick it off to John, I'm going to kick it over to Troy with ALSC. He's going to talk about our community involvement that we did and the work that we did with the City of Lacey staff.
Yeah, so if we go back one slide,
Oh, there it goes.
SCJ and ALSC strongly believe in aligning language and spending time with our clients well before we ever come up with any ideas. And so we set aside a time with the City of Lacey and the RAC staff and really had a 4.5 hour work session on site. We brought lots of tools, and really it was I want to commend your team there. The Lacey team was really awesome, because you think, well, you can't really talk about fields for 4 hours, but we sure did. And it was very inspirational. But after a site walk and these conversations, what we really wanted to do was distill down some guiding principles when we're going to master plan a site for the next, 40 years. How do you make sure everything's in the right spot? And so from that came the next slide, which is what we're calling guiding principles. I'll start at user experience and then go clockwise. Typically, we don't come up with this many, but this kind of illustrates how excited everybody was in this all-day workshop. So starting with user experience, across the board, what we're seeing throughout the region is really, what is that spectator player experience? And how does a place have that staying power? The easiest thing for someone to come away from is what they didn't like about this. But if user experience is just great, there's just this sense that was a great complex. And so we really want to make sure that that's designed in, that user experience, and that it is memorable. And again, your context there helps with that big time. Flexibility was talked about a lot. Multi-use, fields being adaptable, different skill levels, different age. Flexibility also just meant that it wants to be very successful when we have large groups, but also with small groups. It doesn't feel like it's this mega complex when it really needs to be more intimate. And then flexibility, we also talked a lot about really appropriate phasing. So how do you put a mark in the sand way out in the future and then find the appropriate phases to get to that overall goal? We talked a lot about differentiators of the RAC and the Lacey region, and some of the best things is accessibility. How is every ability get around the park? How is it intuitive? What's that personal connection from staff to spectator? And then also another differentiator is just the natural, memorable context again. What we didn't want is that you really had to get in a car from spot to spot throughout the campus. And really, if someone was in a wheelchair, that it was very intuitive for them to flow. And what does that even mean to cross Marvin? And that really goes into kind of connectivity. So we wanted to not alienate the existing. So how do we connect both sides of Marvin on both these sites, material wise? How's connectivity? How's ease of connectivity for someone even on their devices? So providing simple things like Wi-Fi. So that was just an interesting conversation. we talked a lot about relationships. What we don't want to do is have accessibility for the local because there's so many regional tournaments. And then also it's the real ease of use for that big regional draw from really all the way up to the sound down, when you're drawing people from Vancouver and Portland area. So it's really, how is that balance when there's a big event or when there's nothing going on? It really still seems like it's successful for the community. And so that really talked about, from the relationship to that success, is how are we creating revenue? How is the staff utilizing this? How does the community just know that there's something for everyone? So a big trend that we're seeing is make sure that it's not just for organized sports, multi-generational. So how is the senior citizen age group feel like they have amenities, toddlers, multi-generational, but also multi-ability. And so we talked a lot about that. Love what Jen brings with the arts and the culture of this. It's not just sports. There's a beautiful site there with the Gary Oaks. So how do you go there and maybe even learn a little bit more about, just like your land acknowledgement at the beginning of your meeting, but how, when you go here, you might take away something you didn't know about this wonderful place. So we're always eyeing placemaking. Stewardship is really the last one that we were talking about, and stewardship range from ease of maintenance from the staff. Stewardship is kind of the revenue and kind of being good stewards of city funds. And then ultimately stewardship is that celebration of place and making sure that the land, when you take a big field that needs to be watered and you implement it onto a beautiful site, when you think about stewardship, it's going to land on that site a little bit different than just excavating the whole thing and just dropping something in like it came from outer space. So I really want to commend the entire team. It was a fantastic workshop, but we've really been looking at all of this in all the schemes that you're going to be seeing from John. Does anybody have any questions about that language? Well, that's good, because we pretty much covered everything you could talk about when you plan a sports facility. So thank you.
I will kick it over to John, who will talk about the concepts we did on the west side, starting with concept one.
Awesome. Thanks, Troy and Trent.
Oh, we have a question. Hold on.
Sorry, I'm so sorry. It takes me a minute to think. As you were coming up with designs, did the team reference like the community survey that went out a couple of years ago asking community members what they wanted to see in like future parks and rec amenities? And I want to know where, I guess, the ideas are coming from. Is it from where we know what generates like income / what people in Lacey want, or that makes sense?
Yeah, do you want me to take that one?
Yeah,
Sorry,
sure.
I missed the first part of it, but you can fill me in if need be. Yeah, so we did the comprehensive plan update, the 2023 Lacey Parks Culture Recreation Comprehensive Plan Update, and we did spend several years engaging with the community. We had over 8,700 comments from the
Yeah.
community, and all that information is culminated into the comp plan. And then, so we use the input that we received through that process
For this
for
plan.
this
Okay, cool.
particular project. Yeah, and we just acknowledging that we have lots of different types of user groups, but there's two very distinct, there's sports users and then there's like general community. And so the needs are different for those two. We
Yeah.
also have data from how our fields are used.
Yeah.
But as you know, and we kind of alluded to earlier, the RAC is really, it's a community facing and a destination facing facility, both of those things in one. But yeah, we were able to incorporate that outreach that we had done.
And then we also just layered on what SCJ and John's team, and then Drew and I's experience that we're seeing over the entire Pacific Northwest, as far as making sure that we don't miss an opportunity really for that staying power. What are parents looking for when they're traveling to a destination like this? Implementing areas for food trucks, and just again, making this even more of an event and that placemaking aspect. So kind of that overlaid with community needs, I thought that was well represented during this workshop.
Thank you.
I got another question.
Oh, go ahead, Gary.
Is there any, that's Marvin Road's a state highway there, correct?
Correct.
And I know this crossing of Marvin is, pedestrian crossing. Has it been considered to realign that and get the state involved to find some funds? Would they consider it? And the other thing, with that new housing development going back, I mean, I don't know. Would it be better to have a big roundabout there like they do on Pacific in Marvin?
Yeah, do you wanna?
So there is
I can weigh in on
discussion
that one.
about installing roundabout eventually, but not as part of this project and associated with this project.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and as Trent said earlier, they are looking at the some at-grade crossing and some separated grade crossing options, and still working on that study and review.
Okay.
Thanks.
Great comments, and we're also, it helps that there's a school zone there too for that traffic calming. And there's things, if you were to go undergrade that present real challenges, overgrade brings cost challenges. So we're gonna be studying all three of those and really lock in kind of the direction we want to go with the master plan. Good comments, though.
Great. Thanks, Troy. I'm going to walk you through the three concepts that we prepared at a very high level. So feel free to stop me should you have any questions as I'm going through them. A couple of things to point out about all the concepts. All the concepts have the same two entry and exit points, one off of Stillicum to the north, and then one off of Marvin. We're working with our transportation engineer to figure out what makes the best sense, but based on our conversations, we've located them approximately in the right locations based on what was discussed. All the concepts have preserved and protected the Gary Oak Grove, which is along the east side portion, which is on the bottom side of this image that you see. And then within the Gary Oak Grove, all the concepts have provided trails and access to all the areas of the development and throughout the Gary Oak Grove. And then lastly, all the concepts have sports field lighting components to all the fields. So you'll see that as we go through. This concept number one, is composed of 2 softball fields and 1 collegiate level baseball field, which is in the middle. And then to jump off of that, visitors will have access to all the parking on all sides of the complex, but the main parking area is to the west of the fields, or the top portion of this image. There'll be a bus drop off at the entry plaza, which is denoted right above item number 1. And overall parking for this concept contains roughly about 360 stalls. The access and entry to the ball fields will be off of the bus drop area and will move through the entry gate in the front of the site concession building, which is number 1, the blue number 1 there. And that elevation starts at 217 there. I'm going to walk you through a little bit of elevation changes through this. That's at 217. The ball fields are at 14 feet below this level. So people will then, the visitors will move down to the ball fields along the stairs at the concession buildings or along the access ramps that flank both the south and the north sides of the entry area. At the concourse level, which is at elevation 203, 14 feet below what was the entry area, fields 1 and 2 will be at the same level, and field 3 will be 4 feet lower, which will include covered seating areas as noted in item number 6. Fields 1 and 2 have covered batting cages and bullpens noted as number 7. And then all concepts have provided play areas in the development as denoted in number 12 and number 14 at the adjacent to the accessible ramps. Lastly, we have provided a maintenance yard at the southeast portion of the site. This is the same in all three concepts, so you'll keep seeing that as we move through it. Any questions on this one before I jump to concept number 2?
What is the seating capacity for all the stands?
We have a capacity, Trent, around.
Let's see, I think we had 500 at each softball field, and then for the,
It was 500 for the collegiate field, 250
Oh,
for
okay.
softball
All right.
each. So basically 1,000 seats total.
Okay, thank you.
Trent, we can probably move on to concept number 2.
right?
So concept number 2 looks almost the exact same. It's very similar to 1. The main changes to this concept is there's no collegiate level baseball field. This is 3 softball fields all at the same level. The other items that are different with this one from the previous one is this concept has bathrooms but no locker rooms, which would be items number 2, flanking the concession building. There's no covered seating area on the middle field or any of the fields. There's just bleacher seating. And then, like I mentioned, all the fields are at the same level at 203. So there's really no elevation change between the fields. Those are the main changes of this one. Other than that, everything's almost the exact same as concept 1. If we want to jump on to concept 3.
There potential for these baseball, softball fields to be used for other sports too, like the outfield?
Yeah. Yeah, we currently, I'll take this one, John, unless.
No, go for it.
Yeah, so at our current facility, so the idea would be the surfacing would be the same as our current fields, which is the synthetic turf infield and the grass outfield. So, yeah, when our natural grass fields go offline because of the weather, we're able to use the infields for lots of different sports, not just baseball, softball, but also like soccer, lacrosse. It's better suited for youth than adult, but we have had adult practices as well.
All right, now concept 3, this is the biggest difference of all the concepts. This incorporates the large multi-use field that could include soccer fields, lacrosse, and it also has 2 softball fields at the east and west side of the multi-use. The ball field has a site concession building noted as number 1 on this one. The ball field also has locker rooms and restrooms as noted in number 2, and another one facing the multi-use field. So that's locker room and restrooms in those locations. And then the ball field also has a restroom located along the third base side as item number 3. And then the multi-use field also has a restroom and storage building located at the east side of the fields as noted in item number 10. Generally, the parking's very similar. Once again, the accesses on this concept are same points off of Stillicum and Marvin, and basically visitors will loop through the site and have access all around the park. I know this was very high level, but feel free to ask any questions on any of the concepts.
About parking capacity, are they roughly the same for all the different concepts?
Yeah, I think they're around like 360. They're all pretty similar. There might be a few more.
Is that entry in line with the schools?
Yes.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's important. That's a mess out there.
Right.
And getting to the point, don't need school buses. Everybody drives their kids and picks them up.
Right. Yeah, and even like
Turn pockets and all that.
the Marvin Road, would be an egress, it would be a right in, right out. More than likely, it wouldn't be, you couldn't turn left out of there.
I see this one doesn't have the walkway over.
Right.
Elevated walkway, that's just for cost effectiveness of the third plan.
Yeah, just, those are just some of the things that we were reviewing, looking into.
What's the, give me an idea of what would be on the multi-use field, what type of sports?
Oh, yeah, so for the baseball component, you have, youth baseball, youth fast pitch, adult softball. Not adult baseball.
Quidditch.
Quidditch, but yes, Quidditch, ultimate frisbee, soccer, lacrosse, football, rugby, flag football.
Do
Yep.
we, I know some folks came in a few years ago wanting to use fields for cricket. Do we see much cricket use out at the rec?
We do have some cricket use at the rec. Do you know about that, Jamie?
Yeah, they require, this field wouldn't even be wide enough, so
Oh.
it's long enough but not wide enough,
Oh,
so
I
the field dimensions they require are massive. So it takes two side-by-side soccer fields currently.
Oh, wow, okay.
To be able to put them to use
To
them.
do a cricket, yeah, there's a portable pitch at the rec.
Yeah.
And so that's, like Jamie said, it's the two fields that are side by side,
I see.
and then the pitch goes in the middle. Do you wanna move on to the?
Yeah, let's move
east
on to
side?
the east side.
Yeah, we'll throw this over to Andrew and he can walk us through the east side improvements.
Yeah, thank you, John. So over on this side, it was a little bit more straightforward in our master planning efforts. So we kind of walked through the process of how that would occur in the stages here in these slides. So kind of the first stage would be taking field 2, converting that into an artificial field, kind of utilizing that existing underfield drainage. Along with that, we'd be looking at updating the existing lights on field 1 from their current fixtures to the more efficient LED light fixtures. And then part of that with the new artificial field conversion would be taking the kind of east side lights of field 1, making those so the poles shoot both directions, and then adding new light poles, which are indicated by the number 5 over there. The other piece of this was coming in and looking at how do we provide kind of quicker seating options without as much work having to occur in your site. And those are indicated by the number 1 on the west side of field 1, which is mobile, portable bleachers that can be towed around. So benefit of that too is that you could utilize those at other fields around the facility at the RAC. And then item 4, we looked at this as a potential area for grass berm seating day 1, but also in the upcoming slide that becomes an area for future fixed seating as well. So keeping an eye towards that future in all of these. And then utilizing the existing kind of toilets and concessions area up there indicated by the number 2. So this would be the first stage of kind of development over there. And then if we want to jump to the next slide.
Well, then I think we have a question from
Bill.
Bill.
Yeah, so on field 2, you're proposing to light it.
Correct.
Do we have any feedback from the community that lives next to the field with those houses and how high those poles are going to go as far as forcing the light back into their neighborhood?
So that is one of the advantages of the LED lights. They're very directional with a lot of cutoff, so you don't get that light spillage that most people are used to with old sports lighting, where you would turn them on and you would see the sky glowing around it because you're just pouring a bunch of light out there. So the LED is so directional that they actually do all of this aiming to make sure that each light is correctly shooting the light out onto the field where it needs to be. Great question. Any other questions?
I have a question about the artificial field. Is the benefit of that it can be used any time of year, not just when it's dry?
Yeah, it actually, so it has a couple benefits in that it can be utilized more often than a natural field, because a natural field's living, so you have to give it time, kind of a rest period between uses. If it's wet, you can tend to kill that grass as well. You can use it more easily when it's wet as well. And the other piece is your maintenance actually goes down because you're not having to mow it. You do have to groom the field, so kind of refluff it all up and spread the infield mixture around. But besides that, it's a lower maintenance field as well. Another great question. Any other ones?
No? Okay, I'll skip to the next one.
So this would be kind of showing more of a completed master plan or phasing of all of this. So you'd have your field 1 and 2 that are now artificial turf fields. And what we're showing is 2 areas of 500 fixed seats, bleachers on each of field 1 and field 2. Additionally, field 1, we're showing kind of those red dashed lines, which would be able to take you out to 1,000 seats on one of those fields there, if that was a desire or need in the future beyond this. And then what we're also showing is all of the number 5s are restrooms, so providing restrooms along the west side and along the east side of field 2. So that also allows for more double headers, more championship events occurring out here as well. And then also providing concessions, which is the number 4 indicator there. And then kind of creating a ticketing or entry kiosk, which is the number 1. So kind of creating a portal and a gateway if this becomes kind of a draw for more tournaments and larger events, and this is that final championship field. And then along with that, providing 2 locker rooms. Those are the number 7s up there, up in the middle. And then also creating more team storage for the local teams and community rec teams that utilize this facility, as well as umpire spaces. So that's the 8, 9, and 10 numbers along the top edge. So that kind of rounds out all of the pieces there. The lights are kind of the same piece, which those are the 12 and 13s. So with that, I guess, are there any other additional questions?
Are we getting those kind of numbers at those fields, 1,000 people attending soccer events? That's.
So we are not currently, but this
Yeah.
would be, potential for future if there was, like a collegiate or.
So the
level
eyes on
type
maybe the big tournaments
league
that
that was
could
fun.
happen there versus the high school youth soccer.
Yeah, kind of that future vision. But then still being able to use it for youth, obviously.
And I think the big piece on that is making sure that we're locating where those pieces would go, how it works for the overall facility, and that phasing could be that you do field 1's 500 and field 2's 500 comes in at a later time, or vice versa.
Is there a plan the parking lot is already pretty crazy sometimes when you go over there. So if you're adding that many more spectators, is there a plan for how you're going to increase the parking capacity?
So that's a great consideration and something we've been talking a lot about. So that would definitely have to be considered. There isn't, space for more parking in that current spot, but potentially in the future, if the other side of Marvin got developed, that could add additional parking in the area.
Well, most events are probably spring to fall, and you got the school parking too.
We do have this, yes, a lot of people, yep, currently are even using the Nisqually
Yeah,
middle school parking lot. They also, though, have a new amenity in there as well, and so, which is increasing the parking need for that whole corner, really.
yeah.
So definitely a consideration. Well, I just want to thank the consultant team. We really appreciate this work. And really that attention to that bigger picture and vision. And so, as mentioned previously, we're going to be recommending the first feasible step in realizing that vision as the improvements here, what you're looking at here at the current rack. And that's the next best step of what we feel with the PFD funding before us and kind of the conversation Troy kicked off seems the most, best step forward. And this will help take care of immediate programming needs and ensure we make the funding timeline, and then again, staying within our means. So the next step will be to make this recommendation next week at the council work session. That's June 10th at 6 o'clock. And then we are scheduled, at this time, we're scheduled to be at the June 17th council meeting as well, this topic.
And when you say make a recommendation, it's gonna be one of those three options? Or
Well,
is
no,
it?
so that's where I was saying with the, back in 2024, that was, we were hopeful to be able to do that. But with the, staying within the reasonable amount of funding that we have, we're shifting that recommendation to starting out with the east side.
East side, oh, just with the, okay, I'm
East side
tracking now.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yep. Yeah, good question. Well, thanks again, you guys. Appreciate it.
Thank you all for involving us.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Have a good day. Feel free to stay. Certainly understand.
I would
I'm
love
sure
to
Troy's got
stay.
other things.
Dinner
time
Chat about Arbor Park lease and maintenance agreements, coming up next, a little.
Missing my son's band concert.
Ah,
To try to catch the end of that, so.
Are you only 15 minutes away too?
I'm in town. Traffic should be too.
At this
Thanks,
time,
everyone.
freeway traffic. Thank you, Troy.
All right, well, that,
Thanks, Trent.
gave a little teaser.
Have a good night, Bogdan.
All right, so that moves us on to 6D, which is Arbors Park lease and maintenance agreement, and this is an actionable item, so Jen, take it away.
Yeah, thank you. As I had shared with you last month, we would be looking for approval tonight. It is an item on your work plan. This is the Arbors Park lease and maintenance agreement. So a little bit of background, and there's a staff report in your packet as well, but in July of 2000, the city entered into a 25-year park lease and maintenance agreement with the Meadow Lake Homeowners Association for the property known as Arbors Park. And through this agreement, the association improved the property, turning it into a park and installing playground equipment. The city does own the property. So as this agreement reaches its expiration, both the association and Lacey Parks Culture and Recreation would like to continue this important partnership by executing the updated lease and maintenance agreement, given current bandwidth considerations. And as you know, we've talked through quite a lot of it with the Parks Improvement Funding Work Group and with the Metropolitan Park District as well. Just the fact that, there's certain bandwidth considerations for maintaining and operating facilities. And so this is a way that definitely this HOA is helping out with that. And then the community has a park that they can go to. As you all probably remember, this is a park that's open to everyone, even though the Homeowners Association oversees the maintenance of. So this is, something at no cost to the city that we can continue on with. I really want to thank Carter Gibson for all of his efforts with this project, and Jamie Oakland as well weighing in. This has been a work in progress. We actually started meeting with the HOA 2 years ago, and then just a year ago in earnest of updating this agreement. So it's definitely been a long time coming and just appreciate the efforts of staff. Thanks to Carter, really, he's been on schedule, so appreciate that. The attached agreement, it sticks with the association's responsibility to maintain the property in a manner that's safe and that the city is in agreement. And then it also includes a couple of elements that weren't captured in the original agreement. So the inspection portion, the city will conduct hazardous tree and park and playground inspections and then provide findings to the association for them to rectify. So that's something that is new. Well, we've always done the the playground inspections, but we decided to go ahead and just do those quarterly along with our other routine for inspections and just kind of wrap that in. So they'll be more frequent. And then, like I said, the hazardous tree inspection will be done by the city and then the HOA would, pay for any hazard tree removals that comes out of those reports. And then just a slight change with the termination portion. There's an allowance for either party to terminate the agreement within a 180-day notice. Rather than 30 days was the last agreement. So that's something that we worked through with the association. Yeah, the next steps, if the Parks Board approves, it would go on to the city manager for signature and then he would inform the council of the update. So happy to answer questions. You all might have.
Sure. So is there any kind of clause in here that requires them to keep the park public? And that, the homeowners association couldn't vote within their bylaws to change that?
So you have to live here and.
Yeah, when I
Yeah, no,
they
no, I
decide,
know.
oh, we're gonna keep this and you guys can't, no, we're not gonna, we're
Yeah, yeah.
gonna keep it
Yeah.
private park or something like that.
Yep, I'm just looking for the section. Carter gets there quicker. I know it was in the first one.
It feels implied, but it doesn't specifically say,
Yeah, it's in the whereas, you find it second, third paragraph, whereas the city agrees to the execution of the lease.
Okay, now I can see where it says open
Opens
space
the playground
facilities to the general.
to the general
public.
public. Cool, yeah.
Okay.
Great.
Any other questions?
So the extension to 180 days, did we have problems in the past that, a 30-day notice isn't enough, or did the homeowners want that, or?
Yeah, the homeowners association wanted that and, yeah, just to allow a little more time. And we did have, some improvements that we asked them, you'll probably recall discussing here, improvements that we had asked them to make. And we're able to work through that. Even though in the contract it's 30 days, we were able to work with them. But that was something they felt really strongly about in our legal department.
I mean, I,
Was it
as
fine
president
with
of my
it? So-
homeowners association, I totally understand needing 180 days to get everybody around, including your board around.
30 days would be a tight window.
It would be a
Yeah.
really tight window.
Yeah, the 30 days, that's our typical
Right, it's standard contract.
standard language.
Yeah.
Well, there was.
Okay, thank you. So Carter worked through this a lot more intricately than I did. So do you want to share?
Sure, so the original lease, contract language has updated a lot since the year 2000, right? So the city has a pretty standard language to put in all of its leases. So in that lease back in 2000, there was actually no termination clause.
Oh,
Breach
wow.
clause, right? But there wasn't just a termination clause. So per our standard lease practices, we added a termination clause. But that, to Jen's point, that 180 days was negotiated at the benefit of the association. They wanted a bit of a longer stretch there.
Yeah, makes sense.
We're of course amenable to that.
Yeah.
So wanted just a mechanism so that either party could terminate without a breach.
Oh, I
It's
see.
pretty,
There we go.
pretty
Yeah.
typical for
Yeah.
a lease of this nature. Just since it is the term of it is so long, right? We don't. Who knows what can happen in 25 years, right? You want that mechanism to exist, should it be needed.
Sure.
Thanks for clarifying.
Yeah, thank you, Carter. Yeah, appreciate that.
Any other questions? Okay, we'll move it to motion time. So you can hear a motion to approve the Meadows Lake Homeowners Association Arbor Park lease and maintenance agreement. Do I have a second?
A second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, we are all in favor and it is approved. It's just on the city manager.
Thank you, will do.
Perfect. And then that brings us to 6E, South Puget Sound Disc Golf Association agreements. And this also is a actionable item presented by Jenny Wilson, our senior park planner.
Thank you. So as you know, Red Cuyo Park is under construction and there's been a long-term plan with the local South Puget Sound Disc Golf Association to partner in building the disc golf course at that site. And so we're bringing to you now the formalized agreements. There's 3 of them, which I'll give you a little bit of information about each of them. So it's 3 separate agreements. And it's really to reflect the timeline, the long planned timeline in creating this golf course, disc golf course, right? It's going to be a work in progress because it's such a large course and it's going to take a lot of time. So the 3 agreements, the first one is for design finalization. And so this is for the initial phase of the course where they are going to be installing temporary baskets. And we're kind of thinking of it as like the testing phase. It may last 8 to 12 months with temporary baskets, allowing for some adjustments and feedback from the community and the disc golf community. So under this agreement, there's really no exchange of services, but it does outline that we will reimburse them for much of the supplies that they're putting into purchasing and putting into the course. And then the other agreement is the construction agreement. So this is the agreement that we'll sign once the design finalization ends, which could be after a year. So there's a little bit of leeway in the terminology there. But so we're not going to actually have them sign this agreement until the design finalization is ended, but we'd like you to review it, approve it now. We think most of the terms will be the same. Again, there's no exchange of services in this agreement either. It just outlines reimbursement maximums that we will give them. We don't want the club purchasing most of these supplies.
Plated baskets.
Right. Exactly.
Diamond crusting on the edges.
And then the third agreement is maintenance agreement, which this is kind of an agreement that will span all of these terms and it outlines their ongoing maintenance during the design finalization and then also once the course is complete and ongoing. It's pretty similar to the agreement that we have with them now at Woodland Creek Park where they maintain the course and it's been a great partnership. And so in this one, they're agreeing to maintain the course in lieu of 12 days of free or facility use. So they could run tournaments, which is something that they do at Woodland Creek Park also. So we think it's a really great partnership, benefit to them and to us. They certainly have the expertise to establish a really great course. And then, Commissioner Fosbury had sent an email. And so I just want to note that there's some details in these agreements that are a little bit not super detailed. And so there's going to be close involvement with the club on future details. So some of the items that we list in there, we require future approval. So city will approve the location, the design, and that's really because we still need work to do to determine those things. So what we're primarily outlining here is just roles and responsibilities, what we're going to reimburse them for. So that's good.
So does that mean that the disc golf course at Woodland Creek is not gonna be there anymore? It's gonna be.
Oh, no, that one's still staying. This is they're
2 of them.
Yep.
Okay, wow.
Yep, they're
Didn't realize it was so
committed to-
popular.
very, very, very popular.
There's one near St. Martin's too, isn't there?
So
Yeah, it's on
St. Martin's.
St. Martin's campus.
Yeah.
Yeah, and since you're new to the board, you might not know the one at Woodland Creek is a junior course.
Okay.
So the fairways are shorter. It won't be as technical as the one at Great Cuyo Park. The one at Great Cuyo is gonna be an 18-hole gold level course. So it'll likely attract people from really all over the nation. But it will be a work in progress. It's gonna take time to get it to where it needs to be, obviously.
In the goal with the addition of this course, it will allow our region to be able to support like a national championship, like disc golf tournament.
I literally had no idea that people ever
This was
even
that big of a
played.
deal.
I mean, yeah.
We gotta hang out.
I mean, I've
Phoenix a
seen
little
people
bit.
play and I'm like.
It's kind of a big.
It's low, low access.
Sure, no, I get it.
Yeah, high skill if need be. So,
Intergenerational, there's a
Sure.
lot of like grandparents that play with their grandkids, and that's really fun to see.
Which I also am like, I'd rather just play tennis, but that's just me.
Low barrier to entry,
Yeah.
yeah, affordable, so anyway.
Yeah, so that's all that I had to present on it, but it isn't, we would like your approval of these agreements. Again, the one for construction, asking for your approval, but we're not actually gonna sign with them until probably a year or more from now.
I was kind of curious about that, when we have like phase 1A completed, so potentially by the end of June, was kind of that first deadline. And I wasn't quite sure if like that included the plan for the disc golf, like when the construction of the disc golf actually starts.
That will be probably when they start, but we still have to work out some of that, but right now, the group can't get in there to start doing
Right,
their
access has to be
installation.
completed to
Right.
be able to, okay.
Right, so they probably won't be able to even start until construction is complete, so it'll be a slow process.
And I saw like wordage about course signage, but there weren't really any plans in here yet. Do we know if like it's going to be consistent with what the signage is at Woodland Creek? Are they gonna try to create like a consistency with that?
Yeah, that's some of the details that we still need to work out, but everything we're gonna work with them, we have to approve it.
Right.
I think we have some visions of, overhead photos similar to Woodland Creek. But yeah, we haven't exactly.
So, well, any further questions or discussions about the proposal so far?
These agreements,
If we approve it, agreements, if they're not,
I'm sorry, what? Say that one
are,
more time.
if we approve the agreements,
Mhm.
are they gonna be signed now or wait till the?
Yes,
agreement?
the design finalization will be signed and the maintenance one will be signed now. The construction one will hang on to and we'll ask them to sign it once
Later.
yes.
Okay, so we're just approving the two.
Hopefully you're approving all three. We don't anticipate a lot of changes to the construction one.
They're just trying to be efficient and get.
Yeah, and to be honest, we're worried we're gonna forget. There's so many agreements.
We're
I'm a little-
checking the boxes.
yeah.
Bring them all together.
Got your own attorney on board yet?
Yes, he's the one that suggested 3 separate agreements, so.
And
yeah.
we're really, these are really just like how we're gonna work together.
Yes, it's, one of the big things with this is that we're asking the group to do a lot, but we want to clarify that we will reimburse them. The city is willing to pay for it. They're putting in the effort.
The sweat equity and stuff like
Right,
that.
exactly. So we need to get that clarified in writing sooner than later.
Well, if no other discussion, we'll request a motion to approve the 3 South Puget Sound Disc Golf Association agreements for design, finalization, construction, and maintenance. Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Can I get a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, motion carries to stamp.
Thank you.
That moves us on to 6F, the Lacey Metropolitan Park District presentation by Jenny Wilson, Senior Park Planner, and Jamie Oakland, Park Maintenance Supervisor.
Okay, so I'll start by saying that I know this group knows a lot about the Metropolitan Park District. But what we are doing is we're doing a little bit of a kind of community roadshow, going out to other boards, commissions, community groups. And so we're giving this presentation or one very similar to it. And so we want to make sure obviously that you see what we're presenting to groups out in the community too. And so, yeah, so just want to share it with you, and Jamie and I are splitting this up because really a lot of me talking. But the first thing I want to talk about is we need to be very specific and share that I'm only going to be providing information about the ballot measure. State law prohibits the use of public meetings to promote or oppose any ballot measure. It includes this public meeting tonight. So this is meant to be neutral and factual only. So this is a big concern for us, just to make sure that I am not promoting anything, just giving you factual information. And if I seem to veer off, correct me, feel free to correct me. So just really quickly talk about our vision, exceptional events, experiences, environments, connecting people to each other and building a strong and healthy community. And I know I don't have to tell you about that. Biggest champions for our vision. So a little bit about our department. I know you know this, but we have 40 full-time staff, 18 within the Parks, Culture and Recreation Department, and 22 in Public Works. And Jamie obviously is here, Egger is here from our Public Works Department, and Public Works and their staff are the ones that oversee the maintenance of the parks. 2 boards and commissions. I think you may have heard about the Parks, Culture and Recreation Board. And then we also have the Historic Commission. So they provide recommendations to City Council. And then we also have a $10.4 million operating budget. So a little overview about our parks is we have about 1,269 acres. Something that I think people are shocked to hear is that the majority of our parks are either undeveloped or partially developed, so 750 acres. We have 22 developed parks and 4 trails. So it's important that we tell everybody a little bit about how we're funded before we get into the Metropolitan Park District. So here's just a breakdown of how Lacey Parks is funded to operate all of our parks, programs, facilities. The majority of funding comes from the general fund, so 74%. Next highest funding source is from programs and rental fees, 16%. And then the public facilities sales tax, which, as Troy explained, a portion of sales tax specifically for the regional athletic complex. And then also lodging tax, which is primarily used at the RAC, but also for the museum and some of our special events. I feel like Troy did a really great job leading us into that slide. So just a little bit about our programs and events. We offer about 1,000 classes a year, and we create 352,000 hours of recreation in 2024, and served over 90,000 participants in classes and events. And these are all of our categories that I'm sure you're aware of. And then I just also want to note that we have some really strong partnerships locally with North Thurston Public Schools, Senior Services for South Sound, and many others who help us serve the community and offer all these classes and programs. And with that, I'll turn it over to Jamie, who's going to give some additional information on.
So can I jump in?
Oh, yeah.
One of the questions I've received is, and maybe be prepared when you're going out to these people to talk about, is this going to supplant money that's already being spent on parks? And if so, where is the money that's already being spent on parks going to go to? Or is this an addition to? And you know, I know that I was reading the brochure, you kind of talked to that, but you might be prepared to.
Yeah, we have it in here. There's a slide that directly states that it will not, it's going to be replaced in addition to, not supplant.
Plant. And so that's
Yep.
something, yeah, because was one of the first things that some of my neighbors hit me up about.
Yep, yeah, thanks. And we recognize that you can help spread helpful factual information. Great, so, yeah, thank you.
Perfect. So that's a great segue into kind of what we're talking about next is that a little bit of funding. And so 2 slides ago, we talked about how 74% of the parks funding comes from general fund. And as we worked through the park improvement funding work group, we talked a lot about what there's several other competing needs throughout the city that get funded through that general fund. And so we are fortunate in parks to be able to get the funding that we do have through general fund. But it largely just covers the things that we currently own and operate, and there's not additional funding to help us grow our capital. So what do we do currently? I think this is a breakdown of just the labor that we spent in parks in 2024. We did a all public works meeting 3 weeks ago, and we talked a little bit about what makes parks different from the rest of operations. And the rest of operations have much longer maintenance intervals, which means, the things that they do, they're only required to do every couple months or every couple years even. So you clean out a step tank, for example, the wastewater department, you don't have to touch it again for 5 or 7 years, or you crack seal a road and hopefully you're good for another 5 or 10 years. Whereas the parks, we have to service every single day, sometimes several times a day, depending on the park and the events. And so our primary activity that we're involved with is what we call rounds. It's janitorial and custodial, and it involves cleaning the bathrooms every single day, collecting trash, emptying trash cans, making sure that the facilities are safe and clean and usable. And so if we have events or large tournaments, we're usually doing those activities 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 times a day sometimes. And so I do think that is kind of what sets us apart from the rest of our operations team, is that our maintenance intervals on our primary tasks are so much more repetitive and a lot shorter. So, yeah, Gary.
Well, your slide showed only like less than 200 hours of vandalism.
Yeah.
That is amazing.
Yeah. Pretty good. I mean, considering I think last year we had 78 different events. So unfortunately, we're pretty well practiced at it. We have a pretty good routine of getting graffiti covered up and a lot of pretty efficient tools. So
that was amazing.
That's just our labor too, though. So also there's another 300 hours from our facilities team that does help with that. And so that's the full picture, but that's just park staff. Okay, so we just mentioned that we have the funding to maintain what we currently have and operate, but not much additional funding to develop and build. And so that is why the city would be proposing a Metropolitan Park District. It'll be on the ballots on August 5th. And so, as you are aware, a Metro Park District is it'll be created if it's approved to provide ongoing funding to maintain, operate, and improve parks, trails, and recreational facilities. So the boundaries would be the formal city limits. So all the citizens within the formal city limits would have the opportunity to vote on that measure. And the authorized rate would be 45 cents, up to 45 cents per 1,000 of assessed property value.
How many parks?
I have a question.
You
So,
raised your hand.
So if in the future, for example, if the UGA boundaries were expanded, or, the city boundaries were expanded, would that include this would be included in that in the future? So the levy and all of that would be, and then whatever parks might be in those UGA areas that are current, if there aren't any, I don't even know, would be included as well?
Yeah, so the answer to your first question is yes, as areas are annexed into the formal city, then they would be a part of, if there is an MPD that passes, that they would then be part of that levy. As far as I think McAllister Park is the only park.
Yeah.
In
That's not,
UGA?
Yeah.
that's not the city
Yeah.
limits.
Yeah.
That was my question. Sorry.
Okay,
We tag team.
there you
Yeah.
go. So
So there's-
theoretically.
It's okay for the city to own and operate property that's outside of the city boundary.
Okay.
So, and for an MPD as well.
Okay,
So,
Got it.
However, with that said, there's nothing in the PCIP for McAllister Park currently, so,
Right, not in the near term.
correct.
Yeah.
But
In
in
the
theory, in
comp
the
plan.
future, it could
Yep.
be
Longer
whatever.
term, yeah.
Right,
Yep.
okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so just to kind of make sure we're all speaking the same language, an MPD is a junior property taxing district authorized by state law. Again, the purpose is to create new park features and facilities and operate those facilities and expand maintenance programs. And it provides ongoing dedicated funding for new park features that may otherwise take longer to complete or may not occur at all. And so it is a vote of the people to determine whether or not they want to tax themselves for the purpose of growing and maintaining parks. So we mentioned that the proposed rate would be up to 45 cents per thousand. So for the average home in Lacey, the average property value in the city of Lacey is $500,000. So you would look at about $18.75 a month, or $225 a year at that 45 cent per thousand assessed value. But keep in mind, the actual cost may vary and that it really is property dependent. Okay, so what would that 45 cents per 1,000 generate? It would generate approximately $5.9 million per year. So we base that off of last year's assessed value. So obviously, if MPD were to be approved this year, it would be based off of the 2025 assessed value. The intent is to your question earlier, the intent is to supplement, not replace existing parks and recreation funds. And so the city is, and I know the council is adamant that they intend on continuing to provide general service support for the parks operations, and that the MPD funding would be not at all in any way supplanting any of that funding.
But the park district funding is protected, though. It can't be used for any other things, because that's kind of the follow-up question that I got too. It can only be used for parks, whereas the general fund, you guys have to compete for that, and it could be siphoned off.
That's a great, I don't know if that's in here. That's something that we should.
I mean, it increases the budget by 60% almost annually. It's pretty significant.
That's a great question. We should consider adding that. So last point is that just, the Lacey City Council would serve as the MPD board and approve the budget. If an MPD were to be approved. So there are two main priorities for the Metropolitan Park District, new park features and expanded maintenance. So we're gonna talk a little bit about both of those in the next couple slides. So again, back to the awesome outreach that the Parks Culture Recreation team did 2023, right? With the survey. The overwhelming feedback that the community was looking for: spray parks, other water play features, trails and open space access, indoor playgrounds, sports fields, and then unique kind of outdoor amenities, pickleball courts, playgrounds, pump tracks, disc golf, community gardens, things of that nature. And then expanded maintenance, so to keep up with the routine service and repairs that our team is staffed for, say in addition to safety inspections and cleaning and lighting and seasonal landscape preparations. Back to you.
So I'm going to share some details about the projects that could potentially be funded by the MPD, but first it's important to tell you, and I know a lot of you were here during this community input process, but just want to review the process that we use to identify the projects and priorities for this MPD funding. So over the last several years, we've done quite a bit of outreach and gathered 8,700 comments and survey responses from community members related to parks and recreation. So here's kind of an overview on the screen, as you're aware. And after the completion of the comprehensive plan, the Parks, Culture and Recreation Comprehensive Plan in 2023, the main takeaway, or a significant takeaway, was that stable funding source was needed to meet the community needs and fund all the projects that we heard that people really wanted. So then in 2024, City Council formed the Parks Improvement Funding Work Group, which was a group of 15 community members who did a deep dive on funding projects and ultimately made a recommendation to City Council to pursue a Metropolitan Parks District. So that's really how we got here, and a lot of community feedback. So here is an overview of a map of the potential project locations. And again, these were requested by the community and identified in the Parks, Culture and Recreation Comprehensive Plan. I'm going to share a little bit about each project, but there's a lot of projects and a lot of information. So I'm just going to touch the surface here. So first phase of Cuyo Park, it's under construction. It's providing long-awaited access to the first 139 acres, which is the area circled in black. There's a total of 537 acres on this site, all the area in red there. So first phase, large inclusive playground, picnic shelter, 2 miles of trail, a disc golf course. Thank you to your agreement on the contracts that we just discussed, and parking. So the next phase, which would develop other areas, is not funded, but could be by the MPD. We have plans to add additional trails, a dog park, potentially a playground zip line, restrooms. Between 2002 and 2011, the city acquired all these properties to form the Cuyo Park and Greenways. And this is a really great example of how projects can take decades to secure property, get grants, and slowly save to fund a project like this. So we're excited about the development of this project in particular because it's one of our few parks north of I-5, really serving the Hawkesbury area. So we're excited about it, but also just a little bit of background on the timeline that can go into having something like this developed. Another project is the Virgil S. Clarkson Senior Center. There's 2 significant needs due to this, due to overcrowding at this site. So the facility needs to be expanded, and we also need additional parking. So senior center is often full, and overflow parking is necessary to meet the needs. And as you can see, the overflow parking is quite a bit of a ways away from the senior center, which creates some challenges for seniors who often have mobility constraints. Having a long overflow walk is not a great setup for them. So we'd really like to expand parking, and we actually own that little house on the north there. So we have plans where we could expand and use that property. We have a great partnership with Senior Services for South Sound. They're a nonprofit organization, and they run the programs, and we are responsible and oversee the facility and maintain it. So just a little background there. And then Brooks Park is a small 1-acre park off of College Street. Hardly anyone ever knows about this park, but it's pretty cute. It has a small gravel parking lot, but there's really no amenities at this site. So we'd like to develop the park, focusing on adding features, perhaps a small playground. This is a really great opportunity for us to serve a low-income area. There's a lot of homes that are within walking distance. There's great sidewalk access.
Do people use it?
They do. It's used quite often. People will take their dogs there.
We used to walk
because-
over from working.
Yeah.
There
Do you
be
have-
room for a
It's
playground
a
and a-
great, yeah, it is. I mean, nobody knows about it. It's not crowded. It's-
Right. It's shaded. There's great
Yeah.
trees
Where
there.
is it off College?
It's between 13th and 14th.
Just south of Lacey Bowles.
So do you know where the
Mountain View?
CenturyLink building, maintenance building is? You turn in like you're going to the CenturyLink maintenance building, and it's behind that, and it's this big open space.
Oh,
That's really what it is. It's
Yeah,
got
it's
some
just-
picnic tables
yep.
and.
will there be room for a dog park and a playground?
No.
No.
It's too tiny.
Yeah. But it's a great little park and really easily accessible to the community, so we'd like to see a little bit more happen there. And then we have two projects, Long Lake Park and Wanchers Park, which is on Hicks Lake. So in 2002, city acquired this parcel of property. It's about 1.8 acres right next to the existing Long Lake Park. It's beautiful, has waterfront access, and we'd like to make it accessible to the public. In addition, currently Long Lake Park site needs some improvements, like addressing the beach slope and some erosion issues. So Long Lake Park, as you know, is the only swimming beach that the city has. So it's really very popular. And then also Wanchers Park on Hicks Lake. It's kind of a hidden gem. It's minimally developed. I think there's 6 parking spots there. So we need an updated master plan, but the site needs expanded trails, more parking. It could have a swim area and possibly fishing.
Any coordination going on with game department or?
Not at this time, although there certainly could be. Yeah. Our first step is to work on getting funding.
Yeah, okay.
And then Rainier Vista Park, we have some big plans for Rainier Vista Park. We've discussed previously that we'd like to add 4 pickleball courts. We think this could be a great site for a spray park and outdoor table tennis or ping pong, depending on how you refer to it as. And then Meridian Park. Again, this is a really popular park. It's unfinished. And we need some additional planning to determine possible amenities like pickleball, skate feature, pump track, or spray park. The long-term plan has included a multi-use sports field that could accommodate soccer and softball or baseball, and we'd like to see that added. If you've ever been there, there's kind of a big open field area, and that was the intention, to be a sports field. So we'd really like to see that come to fruition because of the shortage of parks and sports fields, particularly in And then a priority project is to work with partners to add features at the North Thurston Public School Young Child and Family Center site. So our contributions to this could be an indoor playground and spray park. Our goal is to be able to add to some of the exciting synergy that's happening here. This Young Child and Family Center site, in case you're not aware, is going to provide early learning and recreation activities to preschoolers and their family. And this is located, some people refer to it as the old Bucknell Fields. So it's going to be near the rack.
I was at a meeting earlier this week where the district said that they're gonna have shovel in the ground in probably September.
Oh, wow.
For beginning construction of the center.
Yeah. And there are discussions about phasing where we could come in if funding comes through.
Yeah.
So
they were hoping to be there by the end of the summer, but.
yeah. And then the last new project that we have on our list is to add another spray park in South Lacey. So the location is yet to be determined, but when we did our comprehensive plan, 4 spray parks in total were identified to meet the growing community needs and provide free access to water. So, you know, this is South Lacey, but then as I mentioned in the other ones, Meridian Park, the Young Child and Family Center, and potentially Rainier Vista. So really trying to hear what the community said when they want spray parks.
And this South Lacey one isn't Rainier Vista, it's somewhere else.
Would be someplace else, yeah. To be determined, but yep, TBD. We do see so turn it back over to Jamie.
We're almost there. Okay, so in addition to the new capital projects, we also have several replacement projects that would be replacing existing amenities. Troy mentioned earlier that, you know, there's lifespan on everything that we build in the parks, and the goal is to replace it before it expires. And so we have at the rack, we have 3 three playgrounds that would be proposed for replacement, as well as several infield turf replacements that are necessary in the next couple of years. At Holman Park, we have a picnic pad that is in need of significant renovations. And that would also be included but there's two large Douglas fir trees that the picnic pad was formed around. And those fir trees have outgrown their space, and so we would need to renovate that picnic area. At Lake Point Park, we have an asphalt court, basketball court, tennis court, and pickleball court, all on the same pad. And we would like to provide an acrylic surface for that, for each of those courts to make them not only more aesthetically pleasing, but safer and more playable. Some trails that need to be reconstructed at Wonderwood Park due to tree damage, primarily on the Brentwood side of the park. I'm going rapid fire. You guys have had a long night. Some playground replacements at Rainer Vista, at Thornberry Park, and Hunmer Park. So again, Rainer Vista, those toys are 20 years old. Thornberries are 27 years old. And Hunmers are also almost 20 years old. So they're nearing the end of their life cycle as well in the next couple of years.
Rainier Vista, you said it's 20 years old?
Yeah, built in 2003, so 22 years old.
Thornbury is old.
It is old.
No,
It's very
my
old.
kids play on it. I'm like,
It is very old.
Something I'm hearing is people are surprised at how old some of our
Yeah.
newer parks
I have a question and maybe like some feedback for you guys. Have you already been giving this presentation or are you testing us?
No, we've given it a few times.
Okay, but I think from a listener perspective, I feel like telling the deferred maintenance story first and saying, these are the problems that we have right now that we can't address before you get to the fancy cool things may go better for people, particularly given the climate. Because you're starting off like, we have this brand new undeveloped piece of property that we want to tell you all about. When it's like the maintenance piece are the things that people can see and understand now, you know? So I mean, like, as a person who would be potentially giving myself a haircut in the budget situation, I would want to consider like, what are the problems now that we need to solve, right? So, cause I'm just concerned that, this is a challenging time for an initiative like this. And so telling a good story makes sense to me, right? Sorry, that's just like, I have a marketing background, I have a marketing degree.
Reiterate, we're just sharing information.
I understand that, but also sharing
We're
information.
not advocating for or against.
Right, it's not necessarily advocacy, but also telling a story in a particular way or providing information in a particular way can help people understand it in a particular way as well,
I think that's a fair point.
And I'm blasting through all the replacement projects out of
Sure.
respect that you've already been here for 2 hours and 20 minutes, so. Yeah, great point though. Okay, final couple slides. So in 2002, the city issued a bond for $10 million and we're able to make significant improvements at each of those parks listed, which was a great thing. The problem is all of those improvements and assets are all aging at the same rate and they were all installed at the same time. And so they're going to depreciate at the same rate and expire at the same time, which means we're gonna have a pretty heavy capital lift when it comes to replacing all these things that we added in 2002. So what are the funding options? So we talked several times tonight about the current funding and providing general fund dollars to not only provide for the maintenance of the things that we currently own and operate, but also the replacement dollars and then any capital dollars on top of that to build new structures. That's hard to do when you're competing with all the other general fund needs. So that's why many of these projects take so long to complete or just don't happen at all. That's why 2/3 of our parks are undeveloped. Our 2/3 of our park properties are on 2/3 of our parks acres. How about that? It's undeveloped. So the other option we just mentioned is bonding, a one-time fund with a defined total dollar amount. And but the problem there is that it does not provide any funding for ongoing maintenance and operations. And so the Metropolitan Parks District is very different than the bond issue in that it does provide the ongoing funding and can be used not only for acquisition of new property and development of property, but also to help fund maintenance and operations, so. So, do you want to handle this one? I leaked, I'm all over your slides, aren't I? I'm sorry.
No, yeah, that should be great. So just before, that was pretty much the end of our slides, and so we just have to open it up for questions, obviously, but just want to remind, we can't advocate, but also commissioners are limited in also opposing or providing in a public setting, so. Of course. Quick reminder, so that's our presentation. Above questions or?
I have a question about the previous bond.
Mhm.
Has that already finished?
It-
Did we pay that off?
Yeah,
already?
so some of it was paid off in 2023 and the remainder of it will be paid off in December of 2026, so.
Is that reflected in our property taxes now, or is that, I don't know how these things work, but.
Yes.
My little thing just comes and says this much goes to the city of Lacey.
And it's not very much.
It doesn't get it doesn't get, you got North Thurston Schools, which I was giving them a hard time the other day. Is this much of my property tax, and then the city of Lacey gets this much, but I don't remember that it says how much goes to parks or otherwise.
County statement does, I think.
Yeah.
Well, it's probably just up to the city to determine how the allocation goes, right? The money comes into the general fund and then they can allocate it based on.
Send me the postcard and how much I have to pay twice a year and what it goes to.
Yeah, property tax, sales tax is the largest form of general fund revenue.
Right,
Property tax is number 2.
right.
Yeah, so I mean, is the part that is dedicated to paying back those bonds.
Right, and that's what the property tax one is, the one that shows
Yeah, just.
how much goes to North Thurston Public Schools, how much goes to the city of Lacey, how much goes to Thurston County.
Do people ask you questions about that kind of stuff? Cause I feel like that could be really important information about understanding like, hey, this fund is a continuous thing that is relatively steady, unlike sales tax, which fluctuates, right? Especially if we all know like during the Great Recession, everything tanked, sales tax tanked and stuff like that, right? So I mean, housing did too, but I mean, I wonder like what, the information that's being provided is like, so people can get some context for what does this mean, right? Like, I wonder, it just feels like there's some of the information is missing, maybe. I don't know what it is, right? This is me with the marketing hat. I'm looking at this from like,
Yeah.
you're trying to convince me to vote for this thing, right?
No, I'm not.
You're not, but
No,
like
no,
the
I-
information that is being provided is talking about a thing that I get to decide upon, right? That's where people come from with this whole thing, right? So even though you're providing information, that information still tells them something,
It would be helpful, I think, to know how much out of just like the MPD, like there's that little chart that says the average cost of a home this much per month estimate. I would like to know how much am I paying for parks now? Just from the Lacey general fund, like what percentage of?
Oh, he said that in his presentation earlier. I mean,
Yes.
the sales tax goes and they get what, 10 million? What was it? What did I say? 10 point?
$10.4 million
$4
for the current park system that we currently offer.
So to saying that equals to be like X amount of dollars per person or whatever.
Or just like out of the general fund, what that's.
I think you've already paid the sales tax when when you purchase the item, so it depends on how much you're, right? Because it's.
Oh,
based
it's
on
sales
sales
tax.
Sales
not
tax,
property.
the general fund sales.
Right, and so I think the question is like, how much is the sales tax, how much is the property tax?
Oh, yeah,
Those
I
are
guess
two
I was
things.
thinking about property taxes. We get that little property tax card in the mail and it's like, this much goes to the city of Lacey.
And I think
And like, how much of that is going to parks?
a large portion of our audience that will be a voting audience does not pay property tax on this. And I think that might be
I mean, they do with their rent, right? That goes to
True.
the landlord who
It
then
depends
pays the
upon what
property
the landlord
tax.
charges. at that
Right,
point.
right.
Yeah, maybe that would be a
Let me,
difficult.
I was just gonna
one to
share, the
calculate.
website has a lot of really good information. Oops. Sure, everybody can see what I'm doing. It's online. So there's a lot of really good information. If you go to cityoflacey.org/MPD.
Yeah.
And so, oops, it's got the, cost of property owners. There's also this link here, my property tax distribution webpage.
Okay.
So we've provided information for folks to be able to look up that kind of thing. You saw this in the slides, and I just wanted to point out, there's also some pretty good FAQs down here. Talks a little bit more about some of the things we covered, plus it's got additional information. Tax increases the Lacey has put in place over the last 20 years. Example of a levy rate over time, things like that. So the website does provide additional information. It's really helpful for folks. Yeah, great question.
The average person doesn't understand what a levy does and how it works. They really don't.
And I mean, they're probably not gonna scroll down to that huge long page to read all the stuff in anyway. either,
They are, they're gonna care, so the sound bite is $18.25 or $18.45, whatever it is, per month, right?
Do we have any outstanding levy commitments?
We do have yeah, Jenny had just mentioned. Yeah, there's 2 bonds that expired. One was in 2023 and one will at the end of 2026. That was the last major
Levies
investment
are
in Lacey's
bonds.
Parks.
Levies, I thought could
Levies are operating.
operating, and are they?
Well, no, you can do a capital levy.
We don't have, it's just capital bonds that will expire. That was the
Construction,
2002
But you
investment
can't
that Jenny met, or maybe Jamie. had
It's
mentioned.
different than the school districts, whereas levies are
Yeah.
just operations and bonds or buildings, but.
Which, and this kind of outreach is important not to confuse people.
No, it is.
And,
Yeah.
you start talking various forms of taxation.
Yeah, you just,
All this stuff.
$18.45
Yeah.
a month.
So,
That chart is super helpful.
even with bonds, these are voter approved bonds.
Right.
Where the voters are designated to property tax as a source of funds to pay the bond back. But we just issued $16 million of bonds for the police station, but that's a councilmatic bond. And the revenue source that's pledged against that is basically coming out of the general fund. So there's not a property tax increase associated with that. So, yeah, it's a delicate dance in terms of providing the information that's informative and valuable, yet
Still
not,
understand.
not making it confusing, because confusion results in a no vote.
Right, right.
Okay, well, I know we guys still have reports to get through too, so, let's, if you guys don't mind, we can move on, so, 7 reports, A for commissioners, was there anything any commissioners wanted to report? Oh my gosh, we're the Great Coyo Park financial plan, so 6G, I apologize.
Oh, no, that's okay. No, that's fine. It's in the packet. So this is actually, this is an item on your work plan, and it's not something we're looking for approval on from the Parks Board, but it's more for your awareness and information regarding costs associated with maintenance and operation of the new park, the Great Coyo Park Phase 1A. And obviously, this isn't something that comes up all the time. This is a very rare circumstance where we're actually opening a new park. It's kind of a big deal. And so, yeah, we just wanted to provide, what that initial expense looks like and then what the projected annual expenses look like. So I want to thank Jamie Oakland for putting this information together for you. And so you'll see in the initial expenses, it's $262,480. And so what we wanted to highlight is that the truck, there's a 1-ton truck that was purchased. And we're working on the funding for the journey level maintenance technician. And that'll depend on when the park opens. All the other items, and then for the annual expenses, it's $161 approximately $1,000. You can see that the water utility is still to be determined. Well, actually, we don't have water. Now that I say that. Yeah, but some of those numbers could fluctuate, but this is an estimate of what that's gonna look like to start off. And so we had requested some of the items for the 2025 budget, but since the park won't be open until, we're still unsure the exact date that it'll be open, looking like fall and later in the year, so we will look at requesting those again in 2026 and looking at maybe an opportunity for a 2025 budget adjustment, just depending on when that park opens, so. Yeah, just want to see if you have any questions about that. You can mostly direct those towards Jamie.
When is the anticipated date for the park opening for public use?
Yeah, so we're looking at substantial completion by the end of June. However, no.
Oh, this June?
Yes, this June. However, after that point, we'll need inspections. And so, we are unsure of an exact date, but
Okay.
we are talking about potentially late fall. We have some long lead items, which are the playground equipment and the shelter.
Yeah.
And so, that's why we just don't know of an opening date exactly, but we have been and will continue to keep you all posted.
Will that be a reservable shelter or a first come, first served?
That one is first come, first serve.
Anyone else?
Any other questions?
Thank you.
Okay, great, thank you.
We'll do 7A, so if any commissioners have anything they'd like to announce or report on?
It's the longest meeting I've been at yet.
I did give you a warning.
You did give me a warning.
Well, it's gonna be a long one.
No commissioners?
I will not be able to make the next meeting.
We have no meeting in
Out of town.
And I got nothing, just come to the 3rd of July. I'll be emceeing again, so.
Yay.
It'll be fun. And yeah, so recreational manager.
Sue was not here, so I'm giving her report. So just a reminder that we have a lot of summer activities happening at Huntermere Park. Lucy in Tune kicks off this month, 3rd of July. And also just summer classes and program registration opened today. So it's a busy day for
Registered. So I will jump in. I was shocked on Friday at how crowded the Friday night market was.
I was too.
Absolutely shocked. I mean, there was no parking. There was no, I mean, it was amazing. And
At the train depot?
yeah. And people looked like they were having a good time and I was like, wow. I had no idea it was so popular. That is so
It's
cool.
been growing in popularity for sure.
Ah,
Yeah, and then just a reminder, those are operated by the Community and Economic Development Department. They have a contract with the provider for those events. So those are, our maintenance supports those events, but the parks, the
oh,
recreation staff doesn't
doesn't,
produce those ones.
yeah, wow.
But it's at our property and
Yeah.
it's a great partnership.
It was enough that Kim Morris had a sign out that said no event parking in their parking lot. I mean, it was that full. It was,
Yeah, it's been fun. It's great.
I've been telling all my
Pursuit?
friends with kids
Yep.
about the
Okay.
summer
Jamie's up.
programs.
Moving on, Jamie.
Yeah, I'll cut mine by 3/4 and just give you a couple of highlights. We added 30.5 tons of pea gravel to the Long Lake beachfront. So our department does more than just parks, so we also maintain right of ways and water sites. So we added 2 brand new facilities last month, the new roundabout at Carpenter and Britton. And also a Terry Cargo Reservoir, which is a water storage facility. We re-landscaped Civic Plaza, if you drive by on Slater Kinney. And then we have 69 trees in the parks that just failed to leaf out this year. So we spent a lot of time last month investigating that, trying to figure out a cause. coordinated a parks asset condition assessment, which kicks off next week. Super excited about that. And Rainbow Vista tennis court resurfacing.
Did you figure out a cause?
Not yet.
What-
Yeah,
And,
we
and were they
sent-
all in the same park? or
Almost every park and.
The same kind of tree?
Nope, every kind of different species, so.
Wow.
A super mystery on our hands that we are. So we sent off tissue samples of the lab and we'll see if they can help us, but right now we have.
Got a new bug
We
or
reached out to
something?
arborists and local jurisdictions and so.
So blame it on climate
Yep.
change.
Yep, yeah,
Were they older trees or new trees or?
both,
'Cause,
yeah.
yeah, I had a tree that I planted last year that this year I was like, no.
Yeah.
Didn't do it.
But 70 trees is a lot of trees to,
That is a lot of trees.
we're gonna give them some time and hopefully they can pull through it, but if not, we got a big project on our hands, so.
That's a lot
Wow.
of trees.
On my property, I live along lake, the duck population is nothing.
Yeah.
Oh, no,
I used to have
interesting.
about 20 wood ducks nesting. We built wood duck nest boxes. I had 4 this year. And I don't see the baby ducks. I've seen about 7 this year. Something's happening.
The mallards are doing great in the stormwater ponds.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, maybe they're.
They get well fed.
They do.
They live on bread and.
Yeah, that's too bad.
So one thing, I think the robins are breeding with the Chinese blue.
What?
Yeah.
Is that possible?
With the scatterton?
Making robin jays out there?
I noticed I kind of watched the birds, but the tails on the robins and their breast color is changing. They're light, not bright, they're brighter
gonna
red
have to check
side,
that out.
and they're getting long midtails in the back.
Okay.
Interesting.
I mean, I mean,
Well,
crazy, but
I'm on it.
Anything else just happening?
Nope.
Look at it.
Move it on.
So
been there
senior park planner?
54 years, I bet.
I do have a few items. So since we last met, I've updated the off-leash dog signs that we have out in the park. I think what came from a recommendation from you all to change the design every once in a while to keep them fresh and attention's.
I noticed the new ones, they were.
I
What's the
did too,
new
I
ones at
noticed
Rainier
them.
Vista?
Oh, good. See,
Yeah.
it's
Damn,
working.
wonderful.
It caught your attention.
Yeah.
Tried to use some puppies to catch your eye. Yeah.
Oh.
And then another big item, I know I've kept you updated about Woodland Creek Bridge, but they did go out to construction ad for it and awarded the bid they have a low bidder for $328,000. So staff are finalizing contract and should have a schedule with the contractor soon. Construction could start as early as the end of this month and extend until potentially October. So this is gonna be a pretty big impact during that time. The bridge will not be usable. So we're working to notify user groups, the disc golf group, putting up some detour signs. So yeah, it's a pretty big change.
You're gonna put a log across in the meantime?
No, no, I think that's, nope. But yeah, we recognize it's gonna be pretty impactful. So I'm working on getting some kiosk signs posted out there. Yeah, and then just an update on the MPD. So getting information out now. We have scheduled presentations. We're meeting with 8 of the city boards and commissions, and then we have like 17 community groups scheduled between now and August. So just really trying to get factual, non-persuasive information out. And then I passed around, we have printed flyers. So I think we've sent you digital ones, but since then we actually have that.
And these are the ones that are gonna be mailers too.
Yes, yep. And then the other thing that I just wanted to ask is, we can talk about this probably at our August meeting, so there's no meeting in July. And then our September meeting is typically a tour. So you can email me, but I just wanted to get some feedback on if you had preferred locations of where you wanted to go to tour. Yeah, right, Cuyo, clearly, maybe a disc golf course at Woodland Creek Park, so anyways, we don't have to talk about it now, but just think about it. We can discuss it at our August meeting too. That's all I have.
Thank you, senior park planner.
And I'll be, thank you, I'll be very brief. So since there is no July meeting, I just wanted to remind you that July is Parks and Recreation Month. And so we will be, Sue Faylash, our recreation manager, will be giving the Parks Annual Report per tradition at the July 15th council meeting. And then we'll also, one of us, she or I, will be highlighting some of the July is Parks and Recreation Month items. So it's just a good time to celebrate and show appreciation to staff and celebrate the benefits of, quality of life with Parks and Recreation. And then we also will have like a social media campaign around that. So want to thank Carter for his efforts. He oversees those. But yeah, we're super excited. And then just a huge thank you. We've had a lot of projects, as you see, there's a lot going on. I mean, between the RAC obviously and MPD information, and we're hitting our real busy season with summer. So since Jamie's here, I want to just say, thank you so much for everything you and your crew does out there.
Parks look
amazing
great.
work.
Yeah,
They look so
we love the
good.
parks.
Just one request, can we get some roadies in Wonderwood?
Rhododendrons.
Oh, I thought you meant like roadies, like.
No, like roadies. Get some color,
Yeah.
get some color like in between like the basketball court and the playground. Like,
Oh,
some
yeah, that would be
bedrooms.
nice.
And then
Just
also thank you to Jenny. She's been hustling a lot of work.
Thank you.
And the rest of our department staff as well. So yeah, we had registration today and the phones were ringing off the hook. So our staff did such a great job, but thank you.
Thank you. All right. 8:05 adjourned.
It was really fun to see the off.
Night, Bill.
To be you for a softball game, right?
Good night.
There was only one other.
The other day, I was like, oh my God.